guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of 13 Reasons Why by J. Asher. This is a book that I read on audiobook, so I'm mostly reviewing the audiobook. I feel that if I would have read it in physical copy, I might not have liked it quite as much, so I definitely recommend if you're going to pick this up, to pick it up on audiobook. 13 Reasons Why starts out with our main character, Clay, receiving a package of cassette tapes from a girl at his school that recently committed suicide. And this is a girl that he knew and that he had a bit of a crush on. He wasn't very close with her, but he did have a crush on her for a while, and he was definitely reeling from her suicide. And when he puts the tapes in, he realizes that she's narrating them, and she basically says that everybody who was mentioned on these tapes had a hand in her committing suicide. And the story is basically how she got from the beginning of school, when she started and came to the school, to when she decided to commit suicide, and all the people that kind of had a hand in it. So obviously 13 Reasons Why is more of a darker contemporary. It does have trigger warnings for depression, suicide, and sexual assault, so if you're not comfortable with those topics, I would not recommend reading this book. It definitely deals with it in a very blunt and doesn't really hold anything back kind of way, so if you are not comfortable with that, then I would definitely not read this book. But I think if you are comfortable with those topics, then you're really going to enjoy this book. It handles them well, I think. I think it's very realistic. It doesn't glamorize anything, in my opinion, and it is very realistically done. So as far as the characters, the reason that I really like the audiobook version is that Clay is basically responding to things that she says on the tapes. So she will be talking and they'll almost be having a kind of conversation in a way, even though she's obviously not there. But he is kind of responding to things she says, and it's very easy with the audiobook to kind of get that conversation. They have two different narrators, a guy and a girl, so it definitely feels like a conversation's happening, and you kind of almost get to experience it like you are yourself listening to the tapes as well, which I think is a really important component of it, so I would really recommend, again, listening to the audiobook. As far as their characters, I did enjoy both of them. Clay I had some problems with that I'm going to talk about a little later, but I really enjoyed her as a character, and I really enjoyed just all of the kind of inflection, the voice inflection we got, and it's a very emotional story, obviously, which is why I think it is better done on audiobook, because you really get all of that emotion and all the things that are going on. And like I said, it does not hold anything back, so it is very important to kind of listen to it on an audiobook version. As far as the plot, it definitely moves along at a very quick pace, and I really could not put this audiobook down. I usually listen to audiobooks only in the car, and I actually listen to it at home a little bit, because I was so addicted to the story, and I had to know, you know, how Clay was involved, and all those other people that were involved, and what exactly happened to her, and why she felt the way she did, and how everything kind of ended up. And it is a sad story, but at the same time there is some hopefulness towards the end, and I think it was a really good book to read if you are interested in these kinds of darker YA contemporaries. I think you would really enjoy this. I gave the audiobook 5 out of 5 stars. I would give the actual story 4 out of 5 stars. I actually want to include a little bit of a potentially spoilery thing, so I'll be putting spoiler right here, and when I'm done with that, the spoiler warning will go away. It's not completely a spoiler, but if you are somebody who is more sensitive to how issues like suicide are handled, I did want to point this part out, because for some people I think that would ruin the story. It didn't ruin it for me. It was a kind of a negative for me, but it didn't ruin it completely. But I feel like if you are more sensitive to different things about suicide and depression, that it might ruin it for you. So I wanted to give this potential warning if you might not want to read this story potentially for how it is handled. So again, here we go. The one problem I had with the story and why the story itself got 4 stars is because towards the end, Clay kind of makes it seem like, and the story kind of makes it seem like, she could have been saved by Clay, and that Clay could kind of be a savior, and I really didn't like that kind of storyline. And that really bothered me, because I don't feel like if somebody has depression or has suicidal thoughts that somebody else can save them, and that, you know, somebody can prevent them from doing whatever it is they want to do, or that somebody can cure your depression. I don't like that storyline at all, because I don't think that is accurate, and I felt like there's a lot of times where Clay kind of said, like, if you had just told me I could have saved you, and I just really don't like the way that is handled, because that's not how depression works, and it's not like you can save somebody. So on one hand, I don't like the implication that somebody can be saved by somebody else. There's on both sides of the equation, I feel like that's a negative thing to be saying. So at the very end, there is a situation where there's another girl that Clay kind of knows, and he kind of follows her after the whole storyline is done, and with the implication that maybe he can save her. So I don't like this kind of savior story, this kind of white knight story, or somebody saving somebody else with mental illness, because you can't save someone with mental illness. Somebody who has a mental illness needs to get help themselves, and there's a lot of enabling with that kind of thought that you can save somebody, and it's just a very negative thing, I think. So that's why I gave it a lower rating. If that's something that you also do not like as well, I did want to give you that warning potentially. So overall, as I said, I really enjoyed this story. I really liked the way that most of the things were handled in it, and I gave the story itself 4 out of 5 stars and the audiobook version 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed the production of it, and I think it was excellently done. So comment down below and let me know if you have read 13 Reasons Why and what you thought of it, and if you have any other recommendations for people and myself that are books that are very similar to these kinds of topics, that handle the topics of mental illness well and everything like that. I'm always looking for different contemporaries to read. I do prefer darker contemporaries like this, generally speaking. I like the light and fluffy stuff too, but I do enjoy the contemporary that deals with the darker, more realistic issues. So any recommendations you want to give me down in the comments would be fantastic. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!